Okay, and now we're recording. So we'll go and get started. If Jared can join us, he can join us. If not, well, it's his
Snooze, you
loss.
lose.
Yeah. Just double checking real quick. Them all bricks are. Okay. So let's get started. And welcome to episode 48 of G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. As usual, I am one of your hosts, Aaron, Brotherhead Moss. And joining me in the Headcast studios, we have our continuing guest hosts. First up, we have Brad Abraham, aka Dr. Brainfart. Hey, Brad, glad you could join us.
I'm glad to be here, Aaron. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, too, man. And I knew you couldn't resist joining us since this is a Zartan issue. I know he's one of your favorite characters.
Oh, he's on the cover. He's on the cover. I can't resist the Zartan issue. I've been trying, but I can't resist it.
Oh, wait till next episode. And also joining us is Kevin Reitzel, aka Raider Nerd.
What's going on? I got my copy right here.
Very nice.
Go. Ready to go.
All got physical copies of the book this month.
Oh, yes.
So I also read it on my computer because I'm old and blind. But let's go ahead. And Jared was going to join us, but he hasn't made it yet. So I don't know if he got stuck in traffic somewhere, as stated earlier, or if he's kidnapped. Who knows? Who knows with Jared? So we'll go ahead and get started with this issue. And if Jared joins us, well, he joins us. So we're going to start out with our issue 48. The cover date on this was June of 1986. The on sale date, March the 11th, 1986. The price was 75 cents. The title of this was called Slaughter. Written, as usual, by Larry Hama. Penciler was Rod Wiggum. Inker, Andy Bushinsky. Letterer, Joseph Rosen. Colorist, George Russo. The cover credit was done by Mike. Oops, try that again. The cover credit was done by Mike Zeck and John Beatty. And I'm a little slow today. There it is.
It's not the same.
Mike Zeck with Betty Mike Zeck.
Yes, no, I've got recorded it, and I've got it. Just again, we don't need Jared at this point. So we got an artist, we've got his voice. Just need some of the military authenticity, and we're good to go. So the editor of this was Bob Harris. This was reprinted in G.I. Joe trade paperback number 5, and I believe the G.I. Joe complete collection number 5. Mike's Amazing World doesn't mention that, and the character that has these books isn't here to confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's 5. So first, let's go ahead and look at the cover of this. Oh, and I almost forgot what I'm doing here. Let me... How do you get that in there? There we go. So here's the cover as everyone's holding it up, and I've got it on the screen there. This is our cover of G.I. Joe for those listening. Again, we're at G.I. Joe headquarters level 3. We've got Zartan holding his gun, and he's holding Gung-Ho by the neck, holding him captive, hostage, however you want to phrase it. Let's get some thoughts on this. Let's start with Brad. Brad, what are your thoughts on this cover?
Well, it's probably good that Jared's here because of what I'm about to say. No, that's not true. It's a fine cover. I like it more than I probably did at the time. I think it's a good cover for what it is. It certainly tells a story, and it tells you in one image what's going to happen in this issue or what the issue is centered about. That kind of points at overall problems with this issue, but we'll get into that. It's certainly dramatic, and it's got Zartan in the dominant role, with Gung-Ho in a chokehold, which is impressive given the size and the fact that Gung Ho is a Marine. Marines are difficult to get the chokehold, not to know or anything. But I really like the angles though, like on the door. It's you can kind of tell is the door open? Is the door being opened? It's got a nice visual composition to it. And it tells a story, and it nicely summarizes an issue, which is difficult to do with a single image. And Jared was here, we could ask, because I know we have opinions on it. I think, if anything, and that also extends to the issue, if what prevents me from being completely head over heels for it is the last 3 issues, plot-wise, story-wise, and cover art-wise, have all been exceptional. So this one feels like a little bit of a dip down for me. I honestly like issues 45, 46, and 47, the covers, and even the next one, 49, a little bit more than this one. I think just because it's only 2 characters on the cover and in a relative close-up. But on a pure craft level, you really have to admire it, just the exceptions between Zartan clutching the gun and looking to the door, and Gung Ho sort of being choked out and kind of glaring up at Zartan as well. So it certainly makes you want to open the issue and find out what the circumstances are and how they're going to be resolved, which I guess is what any good issue cover should do. So those are my thoughts.
And Kevin, what are your thoughts on this cover?
Yeah, I like what Brad said about comparing it to, well, this arc that we have of Cobra Island being established, and these other little struggles that are happening, especially with Zartan and Ripcord here, and that, you know, this cover's a good cover. It's not a great cover. You know, you go back a couple of issues, issue 46, where you got Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow blasting through the door, and there's the whole, like, you know, fighting on the island, and the who's who that continues through this episode. And Zartan's got this weird kind of supernatural power. It's just, it is what it is, you know. Most of us have accepted it. Some of us on this panel probably haven't. But I like the fact that the cover doesn't allude to that very much. It's you know, Zartan's got Gung Ho in a chokehold, and he's holding him prisoner with a big revolver pistol, you know, which is pretty cool. And you know, there's a sign that says G.I. Joe Headquarters Level 3. I don't know if the sign inside G.I. Joe Headquarters would say G.I. Joe Headquarters, but for comic purposes, it gives the message. So, it's a decent cover.
And before I get my thoughts, just a couple of thoughts from the chat. Eric Smith, who is our game master over on the G.I. Joe Adventure Continues role-playing game, he says Mike Zeck is God. And he also says the best cover of the series with the possible exception of Silent Interlude. And then Ryan Bombach just says Raider Nerd. So
what's up, Brian? How you doing? Thank you.
And as far as my thoughts, yeah, I agree with Kevin and somewhat Brad. I don't agree too much with Brad. But yeah, no, I like this cover. It's one that I remember when I think of G.I. Joe. Yeah, I agree that I don't know if the inside the actual pit would say G.I. Joe Headquarters on the sign, but I don't know, maybe. If you wake up and you don't realize where you're at, you were somewhere else on Cobra Island, next thing you know, you're at G.I. Joe Headquarters. Maybe you need to know where you're at. I don't know. So I do like the drawings on this. We can tell who both, sometimes you can't really tell who the characters are. This one here, you can clearly make out Zartan and Gung Ho. And I don't know if Zartan would have Gung Ho in that hold, as Brad mentioned, but I do like the way it's staged. So let's get some numbers on this. Let's go ahead and start with Brad once again. Brad, out of 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas.
Well, if I was going to be a total hard ass, and I would say maybe 3 out of 5 would be my total hard ass vote, but because it's Beatty and Zeck, it automatically gets a 3. Honestly, I like other covers more, but that's just my personal take on it. I always try to rate these things where I can only take maybe 10 all-time G.I. Joe covers with me. This is probably not going to make the top 10. It might make the top 20, but I just think that in in the grand pantheon of all-time classic covers, it's not quite there. And we had a couple of classic covers in the last little block. I think already going on record saying issue 46 was the Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow in the doorway, having to pull gun and kick ass. I mean, that's like a poster cover for me. This one, not so much. But again, and that's not really a slight against it. It's just that there's such strong work evident in the covers of this comic, particularly in the past 20 or so issues, that it's kind of hard to rank them. When you really break it down, it's trying to pick your favorite Beatles album or your favorite Kinks album or your favorite whatever. There's so much good stuff to pick from. You can't really know it.
Very nice. And Kevin, out of 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas.
Brad made a point where I think he did a little bump up on it because, Beatty and Zek did the cover, and I'll consider that as well. But one of the things I've started to take notice when I do these podcasts with you guys is the G.I. Joe actual title of the comic and the choice of different colors that they make it. And a lot of them are white with like the star being different colors, whether it's a black or whatever. And I'm looking at like some of the older covers here, and you get some really like some in blue, some in yellow, and I like the fact that this kind of pops with the yellow and the red kind of outline in the black star for the logo here. I think that actually is kind of cool, and I'm starting to take a little more notice on that as we go forward. But I was thinking like a 2.5, average, but I'm going to bump it up to a 3 because of the Beatty Zek thing. So,
well, there you go. And I guess I like it a little better than you guys. I give it a 3.5, but again, being Beatty Zek, it's going to get bumped up to a 4. Again, Mighty Zek and Beatty can always bump a cover up just by their mere presence. So I'm going to leave it with a 4, I guess. A weaker 4, but still a 4. So, and we know that Jared, if he was with us, would give it at least a 4 since it's a Zek Beatty cover. So, so let me go ahead and see real quick. Let me give you a quick synopsis of this issue. Zartan, posing as multiple Joes, has gotten loose in the pit, and Sergeant Slaughter prevents him from escaping. Ripcord, mistaken for Zartan, learns the location of Springfield and reports back to the pit. Storm Shadow's dead body is bagged, and Dr. Mindbender takes him away. And again, that was from Yo-Jo.
Dead body quotation marks.
And
Dead
Ninja.
Dead body.
And we're going to talk about that, I'm sure. I know I've got thoughts on it, but let's go and get some thoughts on this issue. Let's go ahead and start with the Raider Nerd. Do you have thoughts?
Yeah, it starts off great with the opening page. It says slaughter and the apparent dead quotation mark dead Storm Shadow, and Baron is holding the gun over him after as Bender said that she emptied the clip in the emptied the pistol into him. I think it's a great opening shot there with the sword in the sand. Mm-hmm. Starts off well, also, too, just the moments with Snake Eyes and Scarlet and the rubber mask. I thought it's kind of cool. But then things start to get interesting inside the pit, and with Doc taking the blood sample and stuff starting to happen. And Zartan's starting to basically change into everything. It kind of reminds me a lot of those like either horror sci-fi movies where like the evil being transfers from host to host, basically. Mm-hmm. It's a sci-fi trope, and they're doing it here with Zartan's power. And but you gotta love the fact that Zartan's crew, the Dreadnoughts, come in with the grape soda, thinking that his buddy Zartan's gonna want to guzzle that. I don't know what Ripcord likes, but not to mention there's some bonbons there as well. I like the fact that we get the tripwire scene as well, and one of my favorite scenes, of course, is when Zartan tries to trick Gung Ho, and the word trooper is used, and Gung Ho's like, "Wait a minute, boom. We get the bumbling sheriff scenes again. Seems like every now and then there's some bumbling sheriff, or bumbling police officers that get in there. But we get some cool Dreadnought slashing scenes, and then of course, more importantly, we get Sergeant Slaughter making his appearance in this, and he makes his presence felt as well, which I think is really, really cool. When he was first introduced, I was kind of like, I knew who he was, but I wasn't a big wrestling fan. So I was kind of questioning, like, well, how are they going to use this character going forward? But this is an interesting issue because there's a lot of stuff happening. But when it comes down to the bigger picture, you realize that at the end, G.I. Joe has to deal with Cobra Island being a real island here, and they're ordered not to do anything with it, and things get political. And I like this. I like how Cobra Island was built, and how Cobra tricked G.I. Joe. And when you think about it, it was like the one plan that Cobra did that actually worked. And I liked how they bring the political aspect into it as well. It adds a certain type of realism to it that we like from our G.I. Joe comics.
Very much so. And next, Mr. Abraham, Dr. Brainfart. Thoughts?
You said that a little grudgingly, like, well, Jared's not here. I guess we have to drive things to this one. I'm going to echo a lot of what Kevin said.
Right, then
I love the opening on Cobra Island, and how we have this big splash page of Storm Shadow clearly dead. If you look very carefully, you can see the indentation of bullet hole in his skull. So I mean, if there was ever any doubt that he is dead, that pretty much, it's kind of hard to come back from that. And I guess we never get to see Storm Shadow again. Everything. I will. What's that? Someone's calling in.
Yep, calling in the Kevin.
Anyway,
calling to the Kevin show.
I didn't know this was a Kevin show. My overall issue with this issue, though, is the overall plot. Like, what happened is almost beat for beat a retread of issue number 3, which was many episodes of the show ago, with an enemy agent having infiltrated the pit. And the Joe is trying to stop it before it can reach the surface, pinpoint the location, and broadcast Cobra at the secret location of G.I. Joe headquarters. In issue 3, it was a giant robot. In issue 48, it's Zartan. I'll leave it to you to decide if it's a step or a step down. It feels in that context a little bit of a step down, given that we just came out of one of the all-time great story arcs, the 45 through 47 run of this book. So it feels like a little bit of a step down, but only slightly, because if there's one thing I really have to applaud it for, it's a really, really fast-paced issue. You have a 2-page prologue on Cobra Island. You have a page with Scarlet and Snake Eyes and the PX. And then the next page is Zartan being found out and beginning his escape. And the rest of the issue is this big cat and mouse chase up through the different levels of the pit, which makes me kind of wish that they'd shown the map of the pit again somewhere in the issue, just so we could get a geographical reference point for where everything's happening.
Right.
I know they did a map in issue 1 and then again later on in 22. But
yeah, if only we had reference to that right now, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I guess
to
we could look
see
over someone's
where this was happening in the pit.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm a map nerd, okay, and maps are cool. And anytime I pick up a book, like a fantasy book, and open it up and there's a map, and I'm totally sold, because you look at it and you're like, oh, where's the story going to go? Or if you play any of the Grand Theft Auto games and seeing this big expansive map at the beginning of the game and wondering what significance key locations in that map are going to take place in later on in the narrative of the game, it's always a fun moment of discovery. But let's go to what I really liked about this issue. And I gotta say, Sergeant Slaughter, I was not crazy about introducing him in the toys. The toys are okay in the cartoons, but in the comic, I was like, well, I mean, it kind of straddles the line between this fantasy world of G.I. Joe and the real world. But honestly, for one punch takedown of Zartan. That obviously gets points, but really just for the real world Sergeant Slaughter himself, who's been such a big torchbearer for G.I. Joe over the last 35, 38 years since he joined the team. He's at the conventions and he's meeting fans and he's doing the drum, and the closest thing to a real life G.I. Joe we have. He is one. I think that this bringing him in and having kind of no nonsense, settle the situation in a clever 50-50 way was a great punchline to the issue. But do enjoy seeing Ripcord sort of realizing the situation he's in and kind of playing along, realizing he's mistaken his stand as well in sort of the B plot. And then I guess you could say the C plot is the diplomatic maneuverings around Cobra Island, which Kevin also identified. But it's funny because, when you look at the issues in hindsight, it's always like in the margins of the story, there's a couple of ways that might have gone differently. And when I was reading this one, I was thinking, if what could have happened in this issue that might have elevated for me. And I thought two different ways. One is Mission Impossible on Zartan. You tell the whole thing from his point of view, trying to escape the pit and having him going through all the motions and having them emerging topside, escaping into like a cage, and Hawk's there, and he's like, "We knew you were Zartan all along. Spirit suspected it, and we just confirmed it. And now he's a prisoner of the G.I. Joe team. The guy who killed the Hard Matter is a prisoner of the G.I. Joe team. And the guy is right there. He's got vengeance on his mind because Storm Shadow was killed. So, possibilities you could have run with there. Or there would have been Zartan succeeding and locating the pit and notifying Cobra, and those realizing they've been compromised and they have to, in this emergency protocol, which they must have somewhere, to decommission and deactivate and clear of Fort Wadsworth before Cobra swoops in. And this is something that kind of happened in a few issues, maybe 4 or 5 issues down the road anyway. But it was just kind of fun to think of. And that's sort of where the fun in these issues is you kind of make up little stories and scenarios for your action figures in your head. Not that I still have my action figures anywhere close by. But that's just me, and it's kind of fun to think about. But it does feel like a bit of a bridge issue between really one storyline and continuing. But it is setting the table for the next couple of bigger. So in that sense, it works really well. But in this second run of classic G.I. Joe stories, starting with issue 4, it sort of sits somewhere in the middle for me. It's not the highest it gets, but it still does a lot of fun, interesting things.
Very nice. And a little late, but joining us from a undisclosed location, we have Mr. Jared Ulbrich.
Hey, yo, Joe.
The Art So Jar guy.
Yo, Joe.
Glad you could join us, Jared.
Yo, Joe.
So we already covered the cover, but real quick, out of 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas, how many
4.
Yo-Jo Colas do you give this?
It's a 4.
That's what I figured. I'm like, it's a Zach Beatty cover, so he's gonna at least give it a 4. So
yeah, it's a 4. I think it's just Zach. I don't think Beatty inked it, but you can tell it has like a lot more like thin line inking. Anyway, it's cool looking, and it definitely engages you in the issue, and like, oh, what's going, we've kind of waited for this moment. What's going to shake out from this? And it's good storytelling. It's very good art. If it had the Beatty inks, I'd go 5, but it's a 4.
Yes, I don't know. Mike's Amazing World gives Zach and Beatty the credit, so I did too. But
that's and it's one of those things where I might have to talk to my good friend John Beatty about this. But in the collected edition, it's only gives to Zach,
right?
And when I look at it, especially like when I see these real thin lines like around his shoulder and the real thin outlines on the arms, that's not terribly indicative of Beatty, but can't swear either way.
Right. Well, and that's one thing I think this book lacks is giving proper credit to the artist.
Yeah, they've been pretty good about it in that complete collection, but as you say, there's a disagreement between that and Mike. So who knows?
Maybe if you think about it, you can find out from the horse's mouth. And
From the horse's
Maybe you should go to both of their houses.
mouth. And see what I can find.
I think Beatty has a restraining order against him.
That's true. Didn't need to air all my business, but
That's
yes.
what I do. It's fun. And thoughts on this issue?
I didn't read it, but if I did, it was probably good.
I think you did.
Yeah.
So moving on.
No, it was good, man. It was a good culmination of this whole airborne ripcord story.
I like that picture of Errol Flynn you're drawing there. It's
Thank
really
you. I always thought Flynn should have been a joke. But no, it was like, we've kind of been waiting. What's going to be the fallout from these guys switching places? The old switcheroo is always a fun storytelling technique. So yeah, definitely came to fruition, and it was a lot of fun to watch in this one. And oh, by the way, I'm sure you guys already talked about this, but bonus, it's it's the first appearance of Sergeant Slaughter, which is kind of cool. So let's go on for it.
This one? Oh.
Yeah, maybe if
Slaughter
perhaps.
this one? And again, my thoughts on this issue. Again, as I believe was Kevin mentioned, Baroness is talking about how, try that again. The Baroness and them on the beach with the in quotes dead Storm Shadow, and the Baroness talking about how ninjas can slow their heartbeat and feign death. Is that setting something up in the future? No,
He's dead.
Yeah, apparently.
He's dead.
And I like Dr. Mindbender's line there. Such good genetic material shouldn't go to waste.
I like that, and I also like you guys might have mentioned this already. I like how he's like wrapping himself up, like, oh, it's so chilly today at the beach. Like, Mindbender, come on, man.
I enjoyed that, but second. So my next thought on this is I did love the seconds. Just checking messages. Someone was messaging me about not being able to make it or running behind.
Can't see you.
That son of a motherless goat. Well, he's checking. I'll just make my excuses. Storms. We had storms come through. Power went out, and just as I was getting the computer back up again, it went out again. Which meant the computer had to start from scratch. And my computer was built in 1943, so it takes a while for the vacuum tubes to warm up on it.
So it takes up the whole garage. Gotcha.
It does.
And before I continue, there is a call. I don't know who it is from. Oh, there it is. Okay. Again, Eric is in the chat. He says that a big comic fan in general, and he knows from other material that Zek mostly inked himself. So it's Eric Smith over in the chat. Thank you, Eric. And to continue with my thoughts on this, as I was saying, I love when Ripcord was beating Buzzer with the bedpan. And he said, "Oh, my candy! Oh, my candy!" That was hilarious.
I thought that was airborne, but whatever.
Or airborne, Ripcord, whoever. No one really knows. So
They both jump out of planes, whatever.
Exactly.
You never know. As someone may have mentioned earlier, this is the first appearance of Sergeant Slaughter. I did like his appearance. And speaking of which, let me see real quick. First appearance of Sergeant Slaughter. Let me read my notes. Okay, we are. And I love when the new Joes tackle Snake Eyes, thinking he may be Zartan, and they take his mask off. Like, what the hell? Though I may have to call BS on them being able to tackle Snake Eyes to begin with. I don't think Joe's running down the hall. There he is. I don't think they could have tackled Snake Eyes, but that's my own personal opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Usually not. And then again, when they're looking for Zartan, try that in English. When Ripcord leaps over that console, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a Ripcord move. That should have been a bit of red flag when seeing him leap over that console like that. And then Buzzer's comment, he says, "Hey, Zartan and Ben, they're washing his hands a long time." George is all, "Maybe they were really dirty." I just love that dialogue between the Dreadnoks. And then on page 15, when again, I didn't write out who said it, but I have the book here so I can look and see. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not sure who that is offhand, but the guy with the communications headgear on comes running in. He says, "One of them docs is a shape changer." Uh-oh, maybe I shouldn't have blurred that out. Just, maybe one of them is a shape changer. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. You think? Again, I do like how they have the not quite as big as what was shown in the first issue, but they do have that cutaway view of the pits. Let me go ahead and learn how to control things. Oops, too far. There we are. Make that full page. Again, there we have that cutaway, a little bit of a cutaway view of the hidden pit, or the hidden view of the pit there. I do like that because, again, it is the cutaway view of the pit. Much like above my point out earlier, my shoulder over here, I have, thanks to a wonderful member of the group.
Is that the special? Did it show the special like Hawk/Baroness room, getaway room? Is that in that one too?
Which one? The Hawk Baroness getaway room.
Yeah,
that's top secret classified. I can't mention about that. And as I think it was Brad mentioned earlier, that I love when Sergeant Slaughter punched out gung ho, and how'd you know which one to hit? It was 50-50 chance. And then from the letter column, I was reading through that, and there was a couple of people agreeing with the guy from a couple of issues ago that they didn't like the weirdness that was coming into the comic. That was brought up once again. So
I'd like to actually quote one of those if you're going to bring that up.
Please do.
One of them's pretty funny. Yeah, this is from Ken Petrilli The Rock from New York. He says, "Just finished reading issue number 44. One thing to say. Sorry, that was a little blunt, but this issue was not too good. I'll reiterate that what Matthew O'Brien said in issue 39. You're starting to bring G.I. Joe down to the level of the younger kids. I mean, androids, mutant plant spores? Come on, Larry, you can do better than that. And what about Dr. Mindbender? He looks like a reject from Prince's backup band. Ouch! Burn!"
I just looked at your letter. I thought maybe that was from Brad Abraham. But no, it's not from little Brad Abraham. And yeah, what's his name? Rock. He's not going to be very happy in the next issue, I don't think. Like Dr.
What happens next issue?
It's a surprise. Or as the next issue blurb tells us, the introduction of a new character who will pose a major threat to the very existence of the Joes. Who is he? You wouldn't believe us if we told you. Suffice to say that he calls himself Serpentor, and you'll meet him here next month.
I believe it's pronounced Serpentor.
I was thinking that as I said that. So
Serpantless.
But anyways, that is issue 48. So yeah, overall, we seem to enjoy that, and I think most fans enjoyed it, except for, like I say, there was some that did not like the weirdness coming into the comic. Let's talk about that for a moment. I personally thought that, because again, Larry's basically mandated to use most of these characters in the book at some point somehow. For what Larry was given, I thought he did a pretty good job for the most part, incorporating the characters in and not making it too silly. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Kevin, since you're on the top corner of my screen, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I was looking at this page that you had brought up here. It's the one where
you make your full screen here.
Yeah, this one right here. Where you're talking about the guy with the headset,
right.
And Zartan looks like he's about to become like part of the Fantastic 5, you know. Yeah, and
he's
you know,
auditioning for Torch.
it's interesting to see how in the comic what they're doing to kind of show these supernatural type abilities that we're going to see. And you know, one of the things is we mentioned that we like about G.I. Joe is, especially in the early comics, is the kind of realism that we get. You know, they use real type weapons, you know, where the cartoon they use these laser guns. And
Right.
but you know, they start you know, getting a little more weird with the bats, as the letter in the post office box, the pit says, and the spores and all these type of things. And I don't know if that's just the evolution of how they decided to kind of just go with this kind of what was happening in comics at the time. I don't know,
Right.
especially since you're going to start with like a lot of mentions to real wars, like the Vietnam War, of course, which is a big influence on everyone, you know. And I think it's just kind of funny here where I don't know if they're kind of poking fun at the readers that might bring this up in that next scene where he can't turn invisible. He's just a trick camouflage. He's simply blending. And then he gets hit by Zartan. And Zartan goes, "That's right. Argue semantics," you know? So, you know, I'm on the fence about it. You know, there was times in the later issues, it did get a little silly. But I've become a little more forgiving of it, because it's nice to, like, if you are going to be a master of camouflage, it would be nice to kind of see some realism in it. But I think that when you created Zartan from the beginning, you were going to give him something special that gave him an edge and you know, and an advantage to do what he does and create some funny storylines. So you know, at times it has bugged me, but you know, I've forgiven it over the years, and I just kind of go with it, you know. But back when it was first coming out, I was kind of going, really?
And let's go and get some. I'm going to regret this. Brad, do you have any thoughts on this conversation about the lack of realism creeping into G.I. Joe, the comic?
Why would you ask me, of all people, that?
Because you're here.
You know, yeah,
right,
you know, I'm gonna side with Kevin here. And I think he articulates it well. It's your mileage with G.I. Joe will vary, and a lot of it depends on where you entered the story and what your personal preferences are. I have a big soft spot for that first 19, 20 or so issues, which I kind of call like wave 1, where it was pretty much just the original Joes and some new guys, and the storytelling seemed a little more grounded in the real world, and that carried through till around issue 25 when Zartan showed up. And I've sort of come around on Zartan in the issues since, as he's become more part of the fabric of the story. And you know, I thought he acquitted himself really well in issues 45 and 46 on Cobra Island, where you saw what an actual threat he could be. I think I said then, it feels like Larry finally figured out what balance to strike with him, and in that particular arc. I'm always going to lean more towards the grounded realism over the fantastical with G.I. Joe. I'm going to lean more towards Snake Eyes, the origin, and stories kind of like that. I think it's part of why, and we'll get into this again, assuming Aaron lets me come back. When issue 50 came out and there was that preview for the bag of story for the special missions, that really I was kind of drifting away from G.I. Joe at this point. But I kind of drifted way back over to special missions, the point where a bi-monthly book like that, I was waiting, you know, every second month I was waiting for the new special missions, because they felt more like the G.I. Joe that I kind of got into the comic for, which was certainly action and certainly some fantastical stuff to it, but it was more grounded, you know, in a reality. And I feel like special missions was kind of put on this earth to satisfy fans like myself who still like the characters and still like the whole world that had been created, but kind of put it into a more recognizable daily reality compared to where the comic was going. So in this case, it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too, as the saying goes. You kind of pick your area of G.I. Joe that you really respond to and kind of follow that.
Very nice. And Jared, any thoughts on
If I had read these comics, I'd probably have thoughts.
All right, I'm done.
Well, I think what we're seeing here is, G.I. Joe just in Hasbro, just trying to get as much market share of toys as possible, right? I mean, really, that's what it is at the end of the day. It started out very militaristic, as we saw in those early issues. And then, I think what happened was Hasbro found themselves competing with He-Man, which is fantastical. And they said, let's push it a little bit, more like that. And then later on, as we've talked about before, they're going to compete with Ninja Turtles, and things are going to get really day-glow and fantastical at that point. So, I mean, that's really what we're seeing is the market.
Right.
Now, how do I feel about it? I was pretty much in probably all the way up until the Ninja Turtles phase. And even then, it certainly has a charm to it. But I can kind of roll with it because I see it from that angle. And sometimes I'm glad it went a little more fantastical with things, because war isn't fun. I've seen it up close. It's not great.
What do you know about the military?
Oh yeah, what do I know about it? But like when you do that, when you take that one step away from reality, I mean, because if you don't, then essentially this is GI combat, right? Right. The other or more strictly militaristic.
They couldn't do that because then DC may sue them, but that's another story.
Exactly. But see, that's what I'm saying. It becomes one of those military books. It's just a strictly military book. This allows you to get a little crazy, get a little more like almost James Bondian, with out there kind of plots and stuff. So it allows more flexibility in the storytelling and a little bit of craziness. And I'm kind of a sucker for that. So I understand people who liked the early versions, because the early versions was more tied to probably the 12-inch Joes from the 60s and 70s.
Right.
And then, it gets more fantastic. I mean, it got to the 80s, right? So like I said, Masters of the Universe, Brave Star, Centurions, Bags of Cocaine. These were all available in the 80s. Right?
And I enjoyed them all.
To make things crazier. And in that sense, it made the book more fun and less heavy. But to Kevin's point, I always like when they reground it with basically Stalker, Snake Eyes, Tommy, and Hawk, harkening back to their Vietnam days, because that feels like that's the core of the team, and that's where it all really started. So that's my long-winded answer of saying it's all good.
And no, I agree more with you, Jared. I enjoy it. Then I started off in the cartoon, so I didn't.
So anything goes.
Anything goes. Well, no, I'm glad they didn't go quite as far as the cartoon did, because the cartoon, while I enjoyed it, it did tend to get a little silly. Quit laughing, guys. No, I did like that Larry was able to work this in a more logical and realistic, in quotes, manner, even though there was, shape changing and all this other stuff. And I still want to talk to Larry. I want to find out how he got avoided using Cobra Law, but that's another story for another time. Another question for another time.
I would like to add, though, and this is just coming from the bottom of my heart. I agree totally with Jared, and he makes a really good point here, which is that if G.I. Joe had just remained the way it was for that first 20 issues, and I'm such a big fan of it, probably would not have lasted as long as it has. Because you're right, when you're dealing with something that's like a long-term series, you kind of have to, I don't want to say change with the times, but you do kind of have to re-examine the stories you're telling and find new ways to kind of continue the narrative. That's just a fact of life. And you can look at it in a long-standing TV show. You watch the first episodes of the first season, and then you watch later seasons episodes, and you see a growth and you see a change with stuff. So I think that's probably one of the things that's helped G.I. Joe endure. And this is a tie-in comic that was published over about 12 years, which is a huge amount of time. I mean, a child born the day the first issue came out would have turned around the target age of the comic when it ended. So, I mean, that's a long time for a one story to be told. It's really just a tie in a toy line in a cartoon. So I think that, we all like our certain areas and our certain types of stories. But, I mean, G.I. Joe should be kind of for everybody just enjoys entertainment and enjoys fun stories like this. So some people who came into it at the Dayglow Ninja Turtle era, that's probably their favorite era of G.I. Joe, and that's totally awesome.
It's partially awesome.
Okay, it's like 60% awesome. The other 40% is like Reddit and Twitter and people complaining about it.
Ooh, droids. Shoot, I'll talk about it. All right, so
that was taken from my that picture was the one I took from out of my comic.
They recently, within the last year or two, released a hardcover that collects all the droids and Ewoks comics by Star, and it's pretty cool. I bought it, and I'm going through it with my 8-year-old, and he's really digging it. That's what I have to say about that.
Nice.
Apparently I was muted as I brought that up.
I was wondering where you went. Couldn't see you either.
So anyways, as I threw this in here before we move to the next section, because someone specifically asked to talk about this, or he threw it in when I was asking about what is your favorite art of the book. This was one of his suggestions. So again, as I was saying, I was muted because I was coughing right before that. Did anyone want to talk about this, Kevin?
Yeah. Obviously when we look through these old comics, we like to look at the old ads as well. And this was on the back page, right after you turn the page from the post office box of Pitt. And I was a huge fan of the Star Wars Droids TV series. Only lasted, I think, about 20 episodes, something like that. Yeah. And I have them all on DVD. Some legit, some not. But yeah, I was a big fan of these, and I remember some of these comics. I don't have them anymore, but I do remember reading some of these when I was a kid. And of course, the original animated series, C-3PO, was, of course, voiced by Anthony Daniels, who, of course, has been C-3PO in pretty much everything that Star Wars has released with C-3PO in it. And I just, one of the things that I love being surprised about when I go through these old issues is the ads and the other stuff that has affected us as fans during this time while we were reading our G.I. Joe comics. And that was one of my favorite ads shown in this particular G.I. Joe comic.
Very nice. Thank you, Kevin.
Actually, if I could add quickly, I'll hold it up to camera. You can't really see it. But the ad for Dakota North Investigator is bi-monthly from Marvel. That is very 80s style.
That looks like a possible cover of a Duran Duran album right there. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Although it does bring to mind, there was a sort of indie comic series in the 80s from Max Allan Collins called Ms. Tree, MS Tree, about a private investigator. That's a lot of fun, very pulpy, and it kind of has that same vibe. It's certainly worth checking out if you're a fan of comics of the era.
And we're talking about ads. Do you want to talk about the Spider-Man ad? Introducing Hobgoblin. Because those other ad besides ones for comic book shops. It was the saga The Hobgoblin Explodes in 86.
Did anyone ever actually order, in these pages where they have like all the different ads of, obviously the guys that are advertising in these, they pay a little cheaper rate, but anyone ever like get these like grab bags of comics? Was there anything actually good out of those? Does anyone know?
Don't know. I was too afraid, still am, to go for grab bags.
I can't just do it. I can't do it.
If I don't know if I don't have some sort of clue as to what I'm getting, it's hard for me to pay money for a mystery object.
Real quick, has there been any other times where we've had both Blowtorch and Barbecue working together at once? And I thought the fact that they were laying down some foam to actually track anyone invisible coming through was actually a pretty good idea. Just came across that panel. I'm like, these guys should have their own comic. I'm just saying.
They should have their own. They should have their own sitcom where they're living as roommates in New York, and one is very fastidious about keeping things safe from fire hazards. So that's That's barbecue. Always, making sure the candles are extinguished. The scented candles that they have around are extinguished. And then you have blowtorch, who's just this madman who comes setting things on fire.
That sounds like a very odd couple.
Yeah, that would be an odd couple.
I'd watch it, but yeah, no. I don't know if we've seen the two of them work together.
It's conversations like this is why Jared never shows his face on this podcast.
Yeah.
He shows pictures of him sketchy, but he's like, not going to allow myself being associated.
But
I went and got my this 2016, by the way.
Oh, wow.
The hardback came out. So I know, Kevin, you said you were looking for these issues.
Yeah.
Go snag you this hardcover from
Droids and Ewoks, Marvel.
Wow.
Nice.
Omnibus. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
Every issue.
And for those who don't know or do know, and wanted me to mention it, that all the Droids cartoons are available to watch on Disney Plus and other sources, and they are actually a lot of fun.
But before Disney Plus, you had to get kind of creative.
You had to get kind of creative, If it was you looking for some sort of tube to watch them on, and if you dug deeply enough, you could find them. But they were animated by a Canadian company called Nelvana that is notable for a lot of stuff. Not the least of which was this really crazy early '80s animated feature called Rock and Roll, which
Came
sort
out
of
in
post-apocalypse.
1983. It will be celebrating its 40th anniversary. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, my goodness! I have it on Blu-ray. It's a classic.
Trivia I found out about Rock and Roll, by the way, is that they were the ones that also did the Boba Fett animated special in the holiday Christmas special.
Yeah.
They were the ones that animated that. And before I forget, Jared, turn on your mic. I need to ask you a question.
Hit me.
I think I saw on social media that you finally saw the original G.I. Joe movie Megaforce. Is this true?
No, I haven't seen Megaforce yet.
I thought you had, or you were going to.
It must have been something else. Maybe something similar that I saw was something about the Forbidden Zone. It was very similar, people said.
Okay.
It was
Well, do yourself a favor. Please watch Megaforce.
I'm working on it.
You are not working on it. You are not.
You know what?
Someone to send me a DVD.
I was going to say, in Jared's defense, it is really hard to find a copy of it on DVD. It is not an easily found movie. It's not any streaming service. I know you have it, but
funny
you got a
that.
picture of
They've
you got a picture of Barry Bostwick behind you.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. The original G.I. Joe. Well, there is an Australian release that has some brand new special features on it. If you have an all-region player, I highly suggest that you get it, but it is available.
Well, do you think because it's the 40th anniversary, or it's just past the 40th anniversary, that they're going to do a
That is the reason.
special?
Yeah. No, Australians got on it, but apparently the Americans were like,
Well, they are 18 hours ahead of us on the clock. So maybe we can catch up
It's
to
already tomorrow. They live in the future.
Yeah. No, I've got on my Starbright Project podcast. I've got a friend from Australia that's on there, and he was commenting how we need to quit living in the past. And second.
Yeah, right here, Jared.
I want to see it.
Word, Megaforce.
Oh, and
Barry
it's signed.
Bostwick.
I want to see it.
Right here.
You do.
I just sent you a text, Jared.
When you watch that movie, you will go, that's a G.I. Joe movie.
But it's a particular G.I. Joe movie. It is a particular era of G.I. Joe.
By Hal Needham, who has worked with many movies with Burt Reynolds, and he's a former stuntman himself, and he loves action movies. And he apparently wanted to do a G.I. Joe movie, but had to do this. So,
and the world is better for that because now we have two. We have G.I. Joe and we have Megaforce. So we won.
Yes.
So we won. We won like the good guys won in the '80s, which was always.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to our favorite page of art. This was an piece of art that you guys would like out of the page. If you could have any piece of art out of the book, which page would you want? Second. real quick. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with Brad. Brad, which page of art would you like out of this book?
Well, it'll come as no surprise, but it would be page 21, where Sergeant Slaughter decks Zartan, for obvious reasons. I would be happy with just that panel, that second panel from the bottom. But I don't think longtime listeners to this show don't need an explanation as to why I picked this one. Although I would, as a runner-up, also go with 18, where Gung Ho slams Zartan in the face with the butt of his rifle. So. And then delivers.
Okay, there's a rule. There's a rule here. When you go first, you don't tell what your second favorite is. Okay, so that's a rule. Going forward, if you are picked first to choose a panel, you only pick one and don't mention any others until everyone's had a turn. Okay, Brad?
Okay.
Jared. Again, any page of art. Which page would you pick?
All right, counting down from 22 to 1, my 22nd favorite pick. I'm just kidding. You've got it. You asked us to provide that. I looked at, there was no big splash page except for the very beginning on the beach, and that was just depressing. So I was like, what was a good moment? And I was like, you know what? Introduction to Sergeant Slaughter. This is his first debut in G.I. Joe. He's so closely linked to that. Got to meet the guy at the convention a couple of times. Really nice guy. Really embraces the Joe community. What's not to love? So that's why I picked this one.
Well, there you go. And so the next one up, I believe, would be Kevin.
Yeah, I feel like my parade's just been rained on here.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's when
coming back. So
I think I've seen that page before. So.
I like this whole page because it's got some cool scenes. Of course, we've got Zartan doing kind of a two-face transformation. With was it Hawk, right? If I remember correctly. And he calls Gung Ho Trooper, and Gung Ho's like, "Wait a minute!" and just takes his gun and smacks Zartan. Gets his butt kicked in this because then in the next panel you see Gung Ho going at it again.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you're going to choose another panel, but I'll give my other runner up after you choose yours.
All right. Well, let's do mine real quick. My next panel would be this one here.
Oh, the Fantastic Five one.
The Fantastic, yes, where Zartan's trying out as Human Torch. Page 15 would be my next one. Would be mine. Again, I also had most of the ones you guys picked. Being the host, I figured I'd go last and pick what was left. So I did. I usually pick out 3, 4, or 5 images to choose from, and this was one of my picks. So this is what I'm going for. The one, with him turning invisible and running away invisible. And again, argue semantic, guys. Come on. But hey, there were several great panels in this book. Kevin, you wanted to mention a runner-up?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the one where the Dreadnoks visit fake Zartan in the hospital or whatever that is, and there's just the really interesting bottles of grape soda and the bonbon chocolates. Even if you don't know that that's not Zartan, it's kind of a sweet moment when you think about it.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. And let me see. I will do Postbox the Pit afterwards. And Brad keeps dropping out.
Yeah. There's some technical difficulties here. I had to switch to a plugged in one.
But we will. So I'm going to do Postbox the Pit post-production. Other than I will go for the Real American Hero for this issue, for this episode. That's just Soldier of the Month. That's later. I'm getting confused myself. So we'll hold off on that. So yes, I will do the Soldier of the Month. The Soldier of the Month is someone that I feel has done something for the Joe community, or bribed me, or someone that is showing some extra special effort, I believe. This month I'm going to give it to Giles Guilford. Sorry about that, Giles. Giles Guilford over on the G.I. Joe Facebook group. It's facebook.com/groups/G.I. Joe. Giles is, if you guys aren't on there, he's always posting pictures of custom Joes. Very nice looking. So yeah, this month I'm giving it to Giles for continuing to post. And I know he posts across several different groups. But yeah, he's posted to our page. So thank you very much, Giles, for showing those. I enjoy looking at those whenever you post them. So we're going to go and take a quick break, and we'll be right back with G.I. Joe the cartoon. But yeah, Jared, I sent you a link for where I get my movies from.
Uh-huh.
And I know Megaforce. That's what I've got Megaforce.
Is that something hub?
Yes, I was just about to say P.
No, different.
Oh, never mind.
Same one I sent you, Kevin. So
Family ship.
yeah, well, somewhat. Oh, well, if you guys are ready to continue, move on to the next section. Okay. And welcome back to G.I. Joe. It's time to move on to the next section. I'm noticing some of my slides off a little bit here, but let's go ahead and move on to the cartoon.
I think Brad's microphone is scratching his beard.
Oh yeah,
Scratching something.
Is that what that is?
Getting some scratching sounds. I think it's just he's got a bad connection over there. That's why he keeps dropping.
It's beard scratchies. That's what it is.
That's just tired of Jared's crap. Oh,
beard is causing the internet to cut out for some reason. All right, let me try.
Oh, this episode. Okay, so for this episode, we are looking at the episode entitled Excalibur. This was directed by John Gibbs and Terry Lennon, written by Dan DiStefano. First aired November the 1st, 1985. And the synopsis from Wikipedia: G.I. Joe sets up a radar tracking station in England while Storm Shadow finds King Arthur's legendary sword Excalibur at the bottom of a lake and uses its strength to attack the Joes and destroy their station. So let's go and get some thoughts on this. This time, let's go ahead and start with Mr. Reitzel. Kevin. Oh, he's got paper too. Look at that.
I got some notes.
Do you? Good to hear. Good to hear. Go ahead and share your notes with us.
So it's been a while since I've watched these cartoons, and I forget that everyone in the Joes and the Cobras is jet trained, which is nice.
Yes, they must be.
Yeah. I liked how Duke did his loop-de-loop on Storm Shadow. A nice little aerial maneuver there. Very Top Gun-ish, very Mavericky. So Storm Shadow, when he crashes his plane because he gets damaged, of course. I like the fact that he has some underwater gear with him, but no flight gear. It's interesting. Are we sure it's Excalibur that he picks up? Because I don't know, that kind of looked like a small sword. I'm expecting something a little more grandiose. But the lady in the lake, woman down there, I guess she's the one that keeps it. But do we know for sure? I don't know. Now, one thing that we love about Cobra is their fortresses. They're very thematic. They're always looking very cool on a castle on the edge. I felt like this castle was downsized. If you noticed, it was very small. It was just on the edge of a lock, I guess, or somewhere river. Not very impressive. I was kind of disappointed with the Cobra castle in this one.
Maybe they just acquired it and haven't had time to do the Cobra upgrades on it.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a military expert, but shouldn't a flag carrier shouldn't it have some type of destroyer support? Not just going alone. Don't most carriers have something?
We usually move in groups. That's why they're called carrier battle groups.
That's what I thought. Okay. I love Spirit's line. The eyes see much, the mind fails to comprehend. And of course, I think Quick Kick retort saying you should write fortune cookies. And you know how I love animals and G.I. Joes. Yes. We have freedom. And Junkyard, love it. I love the fact that Footloose uses a Cobra gun, and then it just runs out of lasers. Just run out of ammo with a weird clicking noise, and he says "cheap Cobra junk." And Destro's about to destroy Storm Shadow with a missile so he can get the sword, and he sneezes. I found that funny, actually. I laughed out loud. I wonder what he's allergic to. Is there something?
Success.
Yeah. Success, yes.
Victory.
I love the fact that Mutt saves Queen and the kitty. And then later on, at the end, when they're helping the townsfolk clean up after the dam spill, the kitty is seen riding on top of Junkyard. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cute. And I love it when Wild Bill comes to the rescue. We hear his yeehaw, and nothing like seeing those dragonflies show up. I thought that was great. When the dam was destroyed, there's a weird town statue of a man pouring water. I thought that was kind of ironic that a broken dam takes that thing out. Just there's some irony in that.
Yeah.
That's deep.
And what kind of owl call was it that Quick Kick calls to Spirit? That was like me trying to impersonate Freedom. I'm just saying.
No, your freedom's way better. Don't sell yourself short.
And I tell you right now, Quick Kick, I think his character on the cartoon has far exceeded anything that we've gotten in the comics at all. And he steals the show for me. I love Quick Kick. And the fact that he had some moments with Spirit here, talk about an odd couple. What about them hanging out together and having their own spinoff? Can you imagine Quick Kick and Spirit just hanging out, Spirit doing all of his spiritual things, Quick Kick just doing his impressions? I would pay good money to watch that. And I'm serious.
I've got to jump in here because we talked about this. Aaron, you and I talked about this, and I mentioned it on Twitter. I had this epiphany that Quick Kick, he's a master of martial arts. He likes to sing. He likes to make people laugh, and he's a stunt man. I just figured out he's Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
and it's like kind of a joke, but I think the creators of G.I. Joe might be a wink thing that I've stumbled upon this. I'm convinced that this is Jackie Chan.
Well, I like when you were talking about that. You sent me a message. You're like, I may be the last person to realize this, and I know actually I am now.
That's right. So, well, I'm the last one now because
I would totally buy that, Jared. I think that's great.
because I mean he was gaining popularity at this time in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go on record and say I think Quick Kick is the most entertaining G.I. Joe in the cartoon series.
Oh yeah, him and Shipwreck.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The scene. Okay, first of all, I love the fact that we get Freedom steals Excalibur and then returns it to the Lady of the Lake. I mean, Freedom! Oh my god!
I agree with Jared, Kevin. Don't sell your freedom sound short.
It's awesome.
Okay, so I love the Yo-Jo bat signal. I think I had to take a little bit longer to carve, and that's pretty tough. I just love the fact that he says Yo-Jo. He couldn't have just said Joe.
Or a star.
But I want to go back to this Quick Kick versus Storm Shadow fight that's on the top of the castle here. And I didn't remember how this was going to go because someone in some of the G.I. Joe group had posted a picture of the famous fight in the, what was it? Pyramid of Darkness, where it was Quick Kick's introduction into the series. And he actually hands Storm Shadow his ass. And I was wondering, like, is Quick Kick going to do it again? But no, I think Storm Shadow just had to kick him in the shin, if you noticed. I thought it was kind of funny. Because if you've ever been kicked in the shin, it hurts. So,
yeah.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Mr. Beamish, who thought that Beamish might have been someone in disguise? Is he Scottish? I'm trying to figure that out. Anyway, those are my notes. I did enjoy this episode. I thought it was fun. And we had some animals. I love G.I. Joes and Cobras with their animals. And my favorite, of course, Freedom.
What I did see somewhere, I forget where I was reading it at now, that someone suggested that Mr. Beamish may have been a reincarnated King Arthur, or King Arthur's ghost coming or something to help him out. But yeah, I see where you're coming from. Let's go ahead and move on to the next Yahoo in line. Jared. He's got paper. He's got
paper.
notes.
Here we go. First note, the plane crash animation was actually quite good. It looked really nice. Storm Shadow plus Excalibur equals ridiculous, but in the most awesome way. That's my second note. And I want to point something out here, Aaron. When you read the recap, it said,
Yes,
they're installing a radar system. No, they're installing an anti-Cobra radar system. They mentioned that a couple of anti-Cobra.
Yes,
It specifically only detects Cobra. Don't know how that happened. I think we all noticed lightsaber sound effect.
Yeah, it's in my notes.
Yeah. Okay.
Note number 5. I've got that down.
Storm Shadow gave away his own position to chop something down. Like he had them dead to rights, and he was like, "But first, I'm going to chop this thing down." Okay. It was a statue, in fact. Not very ninja-esque. Not very ninja-esque. Footloose tackled a gosh damn motorcycle, and that's why he gets to be the feature of today.
Very nice.
Oh my goodness! They had a really cool cliffhanger. With the lightning chop and everything going on, it was like they really built up the tension. But when they hit that commercial break, I thought that was really cool.
Wait, real quick, if you don't mind, I'd like to interrupt here. Can you do a little dialogue bubble up there in that picture you're doing and just say cheap Cobra junk?
Cheap Cobra junk. That was my nickname in college, by the way. I've got this note that I think Kevin alluded to. Even Scottish people would be like, damn, this dude is Scottish. I just random note because he took a lot of hits in this one. Footloose probably has brain damage by now. Let's see. Destro is cursing the weather. That's right. He did curse the weather. He was mad at the weather. Another military thing to think of. I like how the British military has taken the entire day off. Like the British military, nowhere to be seen.
Oh, the Joes are there. That they can handle everything.
Yeah. Then they had another good cliffhanger at the next commercial break with the kitty cat, which was cool. Like I said, like you said, Kevin, with the kitty cat riding the dog was really cool.
Excuse me, that's Queen and the kitty cat.
My mistake. Yeah. I wrote down Quick Kick and Spirit, a great comedic duo, right? I wrote down Freedom Rocks. I knew you'd like that. And then my most favorite thing is that I didn't realize that this was the episode where the classic Storm Shadow jumping down to slice that's at the end of like every episode came from.
Yep.
And I thought that was good. In fact, there was a lot of stuff from like the end credits, from this particular episode.
Yes, there was.
But anyway, that's it. I'm out and I pass it on.
In fact, I thought I had a note about that, but I'm not seeing it. But yeah, there was a lot from this episode that ends up in the end credit scenes.
Mm-hmm. There was. It was, and when I saw him jump down with that slice, I was like, "Oh,
that's familiar."
Seen it about 100 times.
Yeah, at least. Let's go ahead and move on to the next guy in line. Hey, it's Dr. Brainfart.
Got my notes.
That's a bag of chips. That's a bag of chips.
Let me put it on camera so we don't see the chips.
That's a bag of chips.
Yeah, I have my notes on the computer here. But I wanted to make the noise.
I like how Kevin and I jumped all over it, too. You son of a bitch.
There is no truth in this art. Disconnect him.
It's like, if Brad's lying about it, is everybody else lying too? No, it's probably just me.
What else is Brad lying about? Maybe he really doesn't hate Serpentor.
Oh, well,
his favorite character. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing about this rewatch is, coming on the heels of the last 3 to 4 issues of the comic, you can sort of see how Storm Shadow in the cartoon is just a total 180 from how he's portrayed in the comic book. He's just another Cobra stooge, another henchman. I think of what cartoon Storm Shadow is kind of what the comic one would have been had someone other than Larry Hama been writing it.
Right.
And you can kind of see that in the cartoon, but also in the Action Force comics from the UK, which were reprinted here as European missions. He's just a henchman. He's a spooky mystic ninja, and that kind of tracks here. And, it's weird given the comic version of the character, how he and Spirit and then Quick Kick become kind of the natural foils for each other in the cartoon. I don't think we've ever had Snake Eyes square off with Storm Shadow in the cartoon, unless it's my amnesia that's responsible for that. I mean, they gave Snake Eyes version 2 a sword along with his wolf, and nobody said, "Hey, let's have him and Storm Shadow have a sword fight. That'd be kind of cool, guys." But that makes you wonder how aware both teams were of what the other was doing. Like, what did the cartoon guys know? Did they read the comic, or did they just ignore it, or did they have some sort of a directive saying, "Don't read the comic. We don't want to step on anything that they're doing in the comic"?
I can actually answer that one. I talked to Buzz Dixon. I asked him about that. I'm like, "Well, did you guys read the comic, or did you guys?" He goes, "No, they every once in a while they get the comic in, but they would ignore the comic and they just did their own thing. They didn't know or care what Larry was doing. No offense to Larry, but they were doing their own thing, and they didn't. They got news from Hasbro, and that's what they followed. They didn't care to sync up with the comic or anything to do with it. So,
that kind of makes sense, and especially if you're just trying to tell the stories and focus on your continuity and not see what the other team's doing, not copying the other guy's homework or anything like that.
And also, the major difference is that Larry wrote the comic by himself, and it was one basically long continuous story, where the cartoon was different writers, and for the most part, each episode was its own thing, except for, like, say, the 2 episodes or the 5 episode premiere things. They were all like one and done for the most part. So,
because it makes you think. Like, I always wondered if, like, off screen, there would have been like a, during leave or R&R or whatever, or just during lunchtime, they're sitting around the Joes talking about that's that crazy. What else happened? This is a crazy day. This, we had Excalibur. We had the Cobra Emperor guy. We had that giant amoeba with a disco ball in it. Just talking about weird stuff that they've had to deal with that they didn't realize they were signing up for when they joined the team. But really, what makes this episode a lot of fun for me is because it gives characters who are kind of, I guess you can consider, like the second string characters or the third string characters in the comic, like Footloose and Quick Kick, sort of a moment in the sun. Even in this case, Footloose's big moment in the sun is Sheep Cobra and having a big stone pillar collapse on him, which wasn't a surprise because, as Jared pointed out, a lot of the clips from this episode were put in the end credits of the show all season, which makes you wonder when it was animated. It must have been one of the first ones they animated, and then in the order of broadcast, they moved it back a bit, I guess. But as I've said before, the cartoon really benefits the Joes and the vehicles and the playsets that don't typically see a lot of action or screen time in the comic. Because, Footloose gets his introduction in issue 37 and pretty much fades into the background, which is the trajectory for a lot of the characters in the comic. Even Sergeant Slaughter, who's a huge part of the cartoon, but outside of a handful of appearances that I can recall, he doesn't really make a big splash in the comic as well. But a lot of times the inclusions here feel like a contractual obligation, but in this case, I think it's great having Quick Kick do some fun things, and kind of solidifies him as, I think, is one of those characters that probably plays better on television. It's kind of hard to do martial arts in a comic, to kind of to detail it, whereas with actual full motion, you can kind of see a little more of the dynamic aspects of it. Him being Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee or Bruce Lee or Bruce Lee or any of the other knockoffs from the 70s. But it's actually a really good episode. I think the cliffhangers are all really solid. With Samo to commercial. Samo or Yun Biao? Yeah, could have been. You'd have to put on a little bit more weight to be Sammo Hung, though. You have to put on like the kind of weight that I'm carrying these days. But my big question is Excalibur returns to the lake, but Storm Shadow knows where it is. So why does he not just go back and get it? Yeah. He's like, I just have to go back to that one lake, and I have to dive down and have to take the sword again. The only solution I could come up with was magical amnesia, which explains a lot of what happens in the TV series and in a lot of TV series from the 80s, actually. They were, unlike today, there was no expectation that you were telling some overall arcing narrative. They were just one and dones. They were episodic, as the as the term episodic television would indicate. But it's just back in the day, because, these things aired once, and you were lucky if you caught them again. There was no real home video market for buying stuff because the tapes were so expensive. So you watched that episode of Knight Rider with Carr, and or David Hasselhoff's Evil Twin, and you maybe saw it again as long as the show was on and there was a rerun, but there was no expectation any of it was going to last. But maybe in the case of G.I. Joe, that enterprising kids with a VCR and like a T-180 cassette on extended play would record every episode and watch them again and again. But but those are my thoughts. And the only thing I want to mention is that if you've never seen the 1981 film Excalibur from John Borman, you should check it out because it's a lot of fun and it's the
most shiniest armor ever. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Yes.
Young Patrick Stewart's in that one.
Yep. And Liam Neeson's first film role actually was as Sir Gawain. So it's fun to check out. And Helen Mirren is all over that movie in many ways. So I'll just leave it at that.
Very nice. I think I've seen that one years ago. I need to rewatch that one. Thanks for mentioning that. Good call. And again, I've got notes. You guys have mentioned a lot of these, but I'm going to say them again. So again, as Jared alluded to, I'm kind of curious how the new anti-Cobra radar is actually supposed to work. I'm not quite sure how it differs from regular radar. I don't know, but since Cobra ended up destroying, I guess it doesn't really matter. Storm Shadow shooting at Duke's jet. Prepare to become one with the universe, Joe. I enjoyed that line. One Cobra ship is shot down and the Cobras flee. No wonder Cobra never took over the world. One ship gets shot down, like, oh, let's get out of here. I know I've said it before. I say it all the time. I love the hooded on the Cobra Commander. And I especially love when he nuts up. He's like, yes, destroyed. Had me rolling. And as Jared, I think it was Jared mentioned, Excalibur sounds like a lightsaber. And my next note here is for a ninja that uses swords, he's really bad at it when he jumped at the Joes and he missed and he cut those crates in half. You're a ninja. How did you got Excalibur?
I have seriously questioned the skills of Storm Shadow on the cartoon.
Yes, very much so. And then instead of cutting the bike, couldn't he have just moved it and then used the bike to get away? It's not like it was a Silver Mirage. I mean, he could have moved the bike and used it.
Silver Mirage would fall apart by itself.
That's why I thought he cuts the bike away. He could have just used it. I'm like, it's not a Silver Mirage. And I thought I kept it at that point because we know what she loves, the Silver Mirage. Let me see. Oh, there it is. I thought I had a note on this. Yeah, we do see a lot of scenes in this episode that made it in the closing credits. And I don't know how it relates to reality, but on the Wikipedia page, this was production code was 600-32. So if that production code is how they filmed them or recorded them, whatever, this was right around this time. So because this was episode 35. So I'm not quite sure how they actually recorded these. And because for Muse, or maybe they had most of the first season done before they did the I don't quite know. But my next note on here regarding Destro, some weapon designer, he sneezes and accidentally shoots his rocket. And then, as I'm saying,
that's happened to all of us at some point.
Yeah, me too. I was just saying that could have gone a whole different direction. I'm reading that, and Jared butts in. And
I don't want to leave you hanging on that one. No pun intended.
And my other question is, he's got that rocket launcher. Why didn't he just use his wrist ones? Maybe, and I don't know, shooting a rocket at the sword he wants. Wouldn't he be afraid to destroy that? I don't know. Anyways, so earlier I commented on the pilots. One jet gets shot down and they all turn and flee with their tail between their legs. The water moccasin pilots are not as afraid as the Rattler pilots are. They didn't turn tail the first time one ship was taken out. Their ships would be taken left and right, and they're still coming at the Joes. I think that the Rattler pilots need to take a lesson from the water moccasin pilots. I like Spirit's comment again. I think it was Kevin mentioned earlier about the quick kicks cry he made, and Spirit's like sounded more like a wounded chicken call. And I believe, I could be wrong, but this is like one of the first and possibly only times we hear a character's inner dialogue when Spirit's like, "Next time I'll fix his brain." I thought that was I liked the comment. It was funny, but yeah, I thought it was a rare time when we actually got to hear their inner dialogue. It was mentioned previously, the Joe signal. So quick kicks throwing stars. They're not just throwing stars. They have explosive. They have gas. Those are special throwing stars, apparently.
Yeah, he's like the Hawkeye of ninja stars.
Yeah. Very much. I'm like, I thought they were just stars. But yeah, watching this, no, they're not just stars. They're a little bit of everything. Flint's three wishes. I laughed at that moment when he's made.
That was good. That was good.
Made me chuckle. And my last comment, as someone else mentioned, I think it was Brad had mentioned. Well, he mentioned about Storm Shadow, but Destro also knows where Excalibur is and that Excalibur's real. Like he said, why doesn't someone, Storm Shadow, Destro, Cobra in general, go back for Excalibur? They know where it's at. They know it's powerful. I don't know. But much like a lot of things Cobra does, like the conch that we saw a couple episodes back, the spell of the siren, whatever it was. Yeah, they didn't go back for that. They tend to leave these ultimate weapons laying around when they're done. I don't. And again, maybe part of the reason why Cobra never did take over the world. Oh, that's a good plan. The heck with it. Fail, we're not going to do it again.
You know, back to the discussion that we were talking about, you know, when the G.I. Joe comics would start to get a little less real with some of the supernatural. Right. I remember as a kid, you know, being able to separate my G.I. Joe comics stories with what I was watching on television with these cartoons. And the cartoons can get away with it. And I was more forgiving of that. But I still enjoyed them both at the same time, knowing that I can get, you know, maybe a little more realism out of the comics, but still I enjoyed these cartoons so much because, well, the toys I wanted to buy were being shown a lot more in every week, you know, as opposed to once a month. And so I remember going back. I remember remembering going, you know, I like the stories in the comics a lot better, but I'm still enjoying the cartoon.
Oh yeah. No, that's what I say. This cartoon gets silly, but I don't think I'd have it any other way. I mean, that's what got me started on G.I. Joe was the cartoon. And yeah, for all its silliness, it was still enjoyable. And I think most of us can agree on that. I mean, Brad may differ just because, you know, Brad likes to be different than it. But that was Excalibur. Again, yeah, why no one went back for the sword later on, who knows? Maybe that is a good thing. I think as Brad said, yeah, maybe there was a collective amnesia going on that once they left the area, they forgot all about it. I don't know.
You think the Lady of the Lake would have said, you know, whoa, are you worthy, Storm Shadow? Are you worthy? Hold up. Answer these questions 3. I don't know.
Yeah, that was I didn't write that down, but that was another thought I had when I was watching. Is like, did you get anyone that lands nearby, or
what? I don't know. If you're Storm Shadow, wouldn't you like talk to her too? Like, what up? You know, I mean.
What is your name?
Yeah.
What is your name? What is your quest? What is the airspeed velocity of an unlimited swallow?
And you know, the Storm Shadow go, I'm going to take this right now. Is that cool? You gonna do anything to me? You know, I don't know. Just questions I would have if I was down there. You know,
yes.
You know,
if I was at the bottom, crash into a lake, and I saw Excalibur and Lady Lake, I would have a lot of questions too. Yeah. The first one would be, did I die? This is just a little.
Are you single? I don't know.
Yeah. Are you busy?
Yeah.
Are you busy right now?
Can you come out of the lake?
Where's the man of the lake? Can I be your man of the lake? No. Just questions.
Offer you a drink? Well, she probably need a drink.
She's like, no, I'm good.
Never mind.
But then she could make the mistake. Oh, I'm washing my hair tonight, so I can't.
Yeah. wouldn't have to work that hard because you're all wet. But quickly moving. Yes, I went there. So that wraps up the cartoon on that note. Just looking here real quick. I think that about covers the show. Any other thoughts on either the cartoon or the comic, Kevin?
No, but does anybody have a 3D TV? I bought this secondhand, this G.I. Joe Retaliation with a cool cover that has kind of a 3D effect to it here, and I need a 3D TV. Avatar has made $2 billion in the theater again in 3D as a way to see it. Our 3D TV is going to come back because I would really like to watch this in 3D.
No, I do not.
No?
Sad. Sorry.
No, I do not have one. I did not get onto the 3D TV.
This lenticular cover is really awesme, though. I got to tell you,
it is pretty cool.
Really cool.
That is.
3D's nuts. I held it in as long as I could.
Jared just got rid of it just this past week. That's why he was late today. He was dropping it off into the.
That's right.
Saying, I can't deal with this 3D TV. Nobody's going to want it. Get it out of here.
Get it out of here.
I wish someone had a G.I. Joe movie in 3D. I could.
Yeah.
Brad, any other thoughts on the cartoon, the comic, or on 3D TVs?
Not on any of those things. Although I would like to add the conversation earlier about where is the flag's escort in the carrier group. Coincidentally, yesterday morning I had the place to myself, and on Amazon Video right now you can watch the 1980, I guess, sci-fi film, The Final Countdown. Anyone familiar with that? That's where the
it's been featured on Action Film Face Off.
Yep. Kirk Douglas is the captain of the USS Nimitz, and Martin Sheen is among the crew, and they travel back in time to December 6th, 1941. If you've never seen it, it's a fun watch. But the one question I had to myself when I was watching it was, you see the Nimitz at sea with its escort group, but when the weird time vortex shows up, the escort group has disappeared. And I'm like, where is the escort group? Because it's a carrier group. It should be escorts there. What's going on? So that's the only thing I wanted to add. The Final Countdown, it's on Amazon. And if you look, you might even find Excalibur there too. Not the sword, the movie, which is pretty wild.
You never know. But Jared, any final thoughts on, again, 3D TVs, the cartoon, the comic book?
I'm always on the lookout for escort groups as well, but I think we're talking about two different things.
I think you probably are.
Brad.
What you got?
Look what I picked up secondhand.
Uh-oh.
The Final Countdown with a lenticular cover
There
on
you go.
DVD.
Nice.
Check that
I
out.
have found that. Welcome to Final Countdown Cast, by the way. I have found that out in the wild secondhand twice. And this most recent time, I just put it up on eBay, and nobody bought it. I was like, "How does nobody buy this movie?" I was offering it for like $4.
The DVD is the actual DVD case is like an aqua color as well.
I know, it's great.
really cool.
But
You know what? I'm not going to rush. I'm not going to rush over to get it because I have to go digging through the pile. But I actually have the novelization of The Final Countdown on my shelf in the other room.
Very nice.
I'm gonna watch it because you reminded me, and I've been wanting to see this for a while. So there you go.
And then you come back and check out the Action Film Face Off episode it was on.
Yeah, do that. But just so you know, Kevin, when you're watching the end credits, they don't play the song by Europe over the end credits because the movie came out 6 years.
Opportunity.
The movie's like 6 years older than the song.
This is true. Yeah.
But if you have the song, you can play it on your stereo while you're watching the end credits.
Holy crap! Catherine Ross is in it. Nice.
Yeah. And if you're a fan of schlock film, Lloyd Kaufman, who you may know from Troma Films, appears in it as Lieutenant Kaufman. Oh. And he's an associate producer on it, just like he was an associate producer on Sylvester Stallone's Rocky.
Oh, very nice. I met Lloyd once at Comic-Con. Very nice guy.
Look at that. Look at that lenticular cover. That thing's gorgeous.
But it's not. But is it in 3D? Is it?
Okay, wait,
is the movie in 3D? Can you watch it on your TV? Or do you need a special TV for that?
I don't know.
Jared used to have one. So
I do want to ask Jared. Do you remember how it fared during your Action Film Face-Off?
It's not a heavily action movie. It fared okay, but I think it went up with something that had more action. I can't remember what it took on. I don't think it won, but it's still great. It just doesn't have a lot of action.
I mean, look at this cover. Look,
it's
my
a
God.
great
Where's the
concept.
carrier? Oh, there it is.
Oh, wait, there it is.
Oh, wait, it's gone again.
That is actually a really nice lenticular cover, especially if you know the movie well. That's very well done.
Where's it going? Oh, there it is. Nope. How awesome is that?
That's
All
about
right,
the
so
level of the special
since
effects
we're
too.
digging deep, let me give you the James Bond connections in that movie. All right, so Soon-Tek O is in that movie. He plays Lieutenant Hip, the man with the golden gun, and all the effects when they go through time are done by Maurice Bender, who's famous for all those James Bond title sequences.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice.
Bam!
Very nice.
How's the show going, Aaron?
Off the rails as usual. That's all right. So there's a conversation, so that makes it worthwhile.
That's all right. I bought your time to finish this Footloose. I still got some.
There you go. Again,
Well, in our collective
Kevin
defense,
Rick-
Aaron, in our collective defense, you did ask us for some final thoughts, and
Yeah.
we just gave you all the final thoughts.
yes,
It didn't have anything to do with the comic. It was just about other movies and things like that.
and
But
that's all
seriously,
right.
look, no. Look, if the final countdown, if you're a fan of G.I. Joe, you get to see some F-14 Tomcats in action,
Nice.
like during their prime usage in the Navy. So, I mean, if for no other reason, just pretend they're Sky Strikers.
So would you
And
agree
a
with-
time vortex would be an episode of G.I. Joe. It would be.
So would you agree with Time Magazine on the cover of this DVD that says a fantastic tale, intelligent and entertaining?
Yes.
I would. It plays. It's very much a big overblown Twilight Zone episode. You could sort of see it being something that they would have done on Twilight Zone back in the '60s. That because there is the moral quandary of we got this huge aircraft carrier here, and the Japanese are going to be attacking Pearl Harbor. We could change the course of time and of history, and that becomes the big debate during the film. It kind of solves itself by a Deus Ex Machina, but that's what it is. But it's
Is there
a
a
fun
weird
one.
creature hanging out on the launch deck?
Something on the wing.
Speaking of launch deck, this predated Top Gun, and the launch footage and all the aircraft carrier footage is incredibly good.
Mhm.
It's like you'd never seen that much access to a carrier and how it works, up close in the movie when it came out.
Yeah.
So this episode of Final Countdown Cast is going really well.
Yeah.
Hey, watch soon for episode 2.
You might as well cut all this out and just release it as a bonus episode. Like, oh, by the way, if you like the Final Countdown, we've got this.
You never know what I'm going to do. Anyways, Kevin, if people want to hear more from you and the Final Countdown podcast,
Well, I love my physical media, so there you go. My name is Kevin. I'm with the Fandom Podcast Network. Check us out on YouTube and all your podcast catchers, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We have a lot of shows on the network, including a Highlander podcast, Star Trek, Star Wars, Time Warp, where we go back and revisit old movies like the Final Countdown and other things, and a bunch of other good stuff on that network. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix, and of course you can find me on Facebook.
and Brad, if people want to hear more from you, and besides your Mindbender Spector podcast, I know you're going to be starting. Where can they find more about you at, sir?
Well, to keep up to date with my podcast plans for the barbecue blowtorch odd couple role play sitcom, you can go to bradabraham.com. That's where I do most of my hanging out and hanging around, and I try to update it once a month. I've been taking a bit of a break from it, but I've been also secretly in the background composing a bunch of pieces that will be running through the spring, including, I think in March, I'm going to be doing a piece on Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. So that's going to be kind of fun, and I'll kind of pepper stuff out through the summer. And that's where you can find me if you want to. After this episode, you might not want to, but
Side note, that movie Reservoir Dogs ruined "Stuck in the Middle with You" song. Just want to let you know. Every time I hear that, I think of ears being removed.
Yeah.
Is it weird that it made me enjoy the song?
Yeah.
For you, Aaron, it's not weird. It is not weird.
All right, good year. Check a second. And finally, Jared, pull up so we can see your beautiful.
I didn't finish.
So, Jared, we're not quite done yet. Close enough. So
Let me talk real slow. Hey, everybody. Also, my friend the Raider Nerd has a lenticular cover where he's holding an ear. He's not holding an ear. He's holding an ear.
That would be a great cover.
What I need to do is one of my very early artworks I have to send so Brad will put it on his website. I did a piece called Reservoir Frogs, and I took that shot where they're all walking in slow-mo in the beginning in their suits, and I just put different Muppet heads on each of them. There's Kermit and Animal and Beaker, and it's Reservoir Frogs. Anyways, this is off the rails. I'm at Yard Sale Artist. It's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. Come check me out, see what I got up and about for sale, and buy something. Oh, and also, if you want to hear my podcast, Long Box Crusade is a great network to go check me and my homies out on. We do have the G.I. Joe Chronicles, where we're talking about the Devil's Due run of G.I. Joe. A nice complimentary podcast to this one, although we have not yet talked about the final countdown.
Cheap Cobra junk.
It can also be found at cheapcobrajunk.com.
And that's why this is the better podcast, because countdown.
I let everybody down.
That, or maybe I just let things go off the rail. And anyway, speaking of off the rail, you can find me at headcastnetwork.com. All my shows are there. This one, which is now a weekly show between this Bravo team and the bi-weekly The Adventure Continues. Again, if you guys like G.I. Joe and you like role-playing games, check out RenegadeGameStudios.com for the G.I. Joe role-playing book. It's fun. And I've got my other shows, Behead Speaks, the Starman Adventure Hour, which is coming to a close soon, within the next year. Task Force X, where I just finished up the Checkmate books, and I'll be continuing just the Suicide Squad books. The Starbright Project, where I talk about, me and the wife actually talk about, sorry, Ms. Welk, where the wife and I talk about the TV show Quantum Leap. Currently, we're looking at the new season/series, however you want to look at it. And we also have Voyagers Cast, where we look at the TV show Voyagers, which again, we're in the final 5 episodes or so of that one. So it's all available on the Headcast Network. For more on G.I. Joe, you can check out our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/G.I. Joe. Join us over there for the fun. And that's going to do it for this episode. Again, let me see real quick. As usual, I want to thank everyone that was watching it live, listen to the podcast, and especially a special thanks to my guests, Brad, Kevin, and the late but here, Jared. And then we'll take your cover of Final Countdown. So this is another episode of the Final Countdown podcast over with. We will talk to you guys next time. Until then, remember, Yo Joe. Kevin, if I get a Yo Joe from you.
Yo Joe!
Jared, if I get a Yo Joe from you.
Yo Joe.
And Brad.
Yo Joe.
And before we sign off, a final look at the Footloose drawing. Beautiful.
Close. I got to color the gun and do a little shading.
Very nice.
Everybody cut loose.
Everybody cut. Everybody cut.
I'm going to end the broadcast.